Okay, we're going to get started here. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Nora Luongo, and I am on the internal marketing team here at WearAware. Just to get a couple housekeeping items out of the way, we will be sending the slides and the webinar recording out in an email either today or tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Feel free to write any questions in the question box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can after the webinar. And if you're on Twitter, feel free to tweet along with us and use the hashtag WowWebinar as we go along today. I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Tia Flick, and she is one of our partners here at WearAware. And she is going to be speaking to you today about Facebook Advertising 101. And with that, Tia, take it away.
Thanks, Nora. So as Nora mentioned, we are going to be talking about Facebook Advertising 101. So hopefully you all are ready to get started. We have quite a few slides to get through today because Facebook advertising can be a little complex. So we'll dive in. Just quickly, in case you don't know about WearAware, we are a privately held digital agency. We've been around for about 17 years. We build personalized websites, we do email campaigns, we do SEO and pay-per-click, of course, because this webinar is about social advertising. And then we also have cloud-based mobile apps and data integrations. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of our clients. We range from B2B to B2C e-commerce to more service-oriented companies. So we have a wide range of companies that we do a wide range of services for. All right, so we had a lot of interest in this webinar. We had a lot of people request this, which is why we're doing it. And just for those of you that might be on the edge of why is Facebook advertising kind of blowing up? It's because of the reach of Facebook. So right now, this stat, I believe, is from just a couple months ago. There are 2 billion active Facebook users a month. So that's a huge audience that you have at your fingertips when you start doing Facebook advertising. And whereas Facebook advertising, I believe, you know, a couple years ago, people thought of it more as brand awareness and, you know, you didn't really get a return on it. Advertisers are now starting to see that return on investment. So this stat is from Digital Commerce 360, that retailers' average return on investment for ad spend on Facebook has increased 75% over the last year. And that's because Facebook has now started giving you a lot more options for targeting and kind of different types of ad options. So want to quickly review what the difference is between Facebook advertising and AdWords. And I put this in here because most people are really familiar with AdWords pay-per-click, and they're used to seeing that keyword strategy for pay-per-click. So I just want to point out the difference. For Facebook, you're not targeting keywords, you're targeting an audience. Whereas AdWords, you're targeting specific keywords, not necessarily an audience, although they're starting to build out an audience there as well. For Facebook, 81% of internet users use Facebook, whereas Google or AdWords, 96% of internet users there. That used to be a lot wider of a discrepancy, and that's getting smaller and smaller as Facebook gets bigger. So mostly people think of the goal for Facebook as awareness and consideration, but again, as I mentioned, it's now moving more towards the purchase side. Whereas AdWords, you're definitely getting people when they're ready to purchase because they're actively searching for that keyword. And then lastly, the thing to think about is your product maturity. So if you have a brand new product that no one has heard of, AdWords is probably not the place to start because people might not know what to search for keyword-wise to find your product. Whereas Facebook, because you're targeting audiences, is a lot easier to advertise a brand new product. So I'm going to dive right in now to kind of a how-to, which is what the rest of this session is on. So we recommend setting up Facebook Business Manager. Basically, your business manager is a place where you can manage multiple Facebook pages and ad accounts, and you can manage the access to those. So if you have multiple people kind of working on your ad account, this is where you manage what type of access they have. And then lastly, you want to use it if you're working with an agency, because it allows you to give agency access to your Facebook accounts. In order to have a business manager, you need to claim your Facebook page. So if you haven't done that, we suggest you create one. And then you also need to claim or create your advertising account. And then signing up is pretty simple. You just go to business.facebook.com and then click create account, and then it's going to walk you through how to set it up. So it's pretty simple. So the rest of this webinar is going to go through using Business Manager to manage your ads. Before we dive into that, I just want to quickly review what a boosted post is versus a Facebook ad. Again, this webinar is really going to be focused on Facebook ads, but I know people have a lot of questions around what's the difference between boosted and using Facebook ad. Why would you use one or the other? So we kind of put this together. Basically, a boosted ad is super simple to use. It's where you would start doing Facebook advertising probably. And you just do it on your Facebook timeline. So right on your Facebook page, you'll see, as you see in this ad that WhereAware did for an SEO workshop, there's a boosted posts button on the bottom right-hand corner. And it allows you to quickly go through and push your Facebook post to a whole bunch of other people. As you know, Google kind of clamped down on the organic search or organic visibility of your Facebook posts. So boosted posts is a great way to get more people to see your posts. But the targeting, bidding, placements, and formats are a lot more limited than in Facebook advertising. So if you want more control over that, you would use a Facebook ad, not necessarily a boosted post. So that's the difference between the two. So let's talk about how to get started with your first campaign. This is how Facebook ads are structured. It should look familiar. It's very similar to how Adwords structures their ads. So you have a campaign level, and at the campaign level, you're going to set your objective, and we'll go through what those objectives are a little bit later on. Then underneath each campaign, you can have multiple ad sets. And these ad sets is where you set the audience, the placement, so like where the ad is going to show, your budget, and how often or how long it's going to run for. And then underneath each ad set, you have the specific ads. And that's where you set your ad format, your media, and creative. So when you go into Facebook Ads Manager, you'll see on the left is kind of a timeline or a walkthrough of where you are in the ad creation process. And the first thing that you're going to do is choose your campaign objective. And I just want to note here that and over here is where you actually pick the objective. But I will say that Google or Facebook is doing this to help you kind of decide where you're going and what your objective is. It allows Facebook to optimize on that goal. But the problem here is that each goal has limited ad formats and placements, which can be really frustrating. And we understand that, so we created a cheat sheet, which we will email out to you at the end of the session. But I know that you can get started going down a specific goal, and then you really wanted to do a Facebook-like ad, and that's not available on anything except an engagement goal. But you have to kind of know that ahead of time before you start choosing a goal. So we, like I said, put together a cheat sheet that will be emailed at the end of this webinar. All right. So once you select your objective, in this case, we're going to choose traffic. You just go ahead and you name your campaign. We suggest using naming conventions for naming everything from your campaign to your ad sets to your ads. So we put that in here. You could say it's the date and then the campaign objective and then whatever offer you're trying to push. And then you move to creating your ad set. So the ad set is where you're going to set the audience, placement, budget, and schedule. So when you create an ad set, you're going to name it. And again, we suggest a naming convention. It just helps you keep organized. Then next, you look at traffic, so where you want people to go from your ad, and the options are your website and messenger or an app. Generally, you guys are going to be sticking to website. And then lastly, you can choose on this section of your ad set is if you want to provide an offer to your customers. We are not going to go over this option today because it's a little bit more advanced, but we will be doing more webinars on Facebook advertising in the future, and we will cover that topic at a later date. Next, you select your audience. Your options here are to create or use a saved audience or to select a custom audience. And we will be going more in depth into audiences later in this webinar because they are such an important part of the ad creation process. But just a heads up that you cannot create a custom audience at this phase when you're developing an ad. You have to do it prior to developing the ad. So that's just a heads up. If you want to use a custom audience, you do have to create it beforehand. And then lastly, in the ad set, you're going to choose your ad placement. And Facebook offers a wide variety of placements, and they keep adding and expanding to the placement options. So most of you are familiar with, Facebook feeds or right column ads, but I did want to go over a few of the newer or less well-known ad formats just so that you are familiar with them. So the first one I want to talk through is instant articles. It's basically a tool designed for publishers to distribute their articles. And it basically, the benefit for publishers is that they load a lot faster than if they just click off into their own website. And this went live in 2015, and it allows publishers to use ad units throughout the article or down at the bottom as a related story. And you can kind of see what those ads might look like on the right-hand side. Next is Instagram stories. This was introduced in 2016. It was kind of a response to Snapchat for Facebook. And basically, you can share multiple photos and videos together in a slideshow format. The photos and videos will disappear after 24 hours, and they won't appear on your profile grid or your feed. So Facebook allows you to create an Instagram story for your brands. And you can kind of see an example on the right by Red Bull. They were promoting their Red Bull Flying Illusions show, so they were kind of showing that in the Instagram story. Next is the Audience Network. This was introduced in 2014. They keep adding to it. It uses the same targeting available for Facebook ads today and the same measurement tools, but it allows you to put ads outside of Facebook. So in this example that you're looking at, it's an app called Easily Do, and you can see where the ads are showing up by gilt. It's the shoes, if you can't distinguish between the app and the ad, but you can see it's the shoes, and then it's also a banner. So they have different options. You can do banners, interstitials, or native ads. And native ads are just ads that blend into organic content. And then lastly, I want to cover rewarded videos. Lots of people don't necessarily know what this is, but basically it's you show a full screen video to people, and they have the option to watch that video in exchange for something in an app. So in the examples on the right, you can have like bonus points if you watch the ad. That's kind of the whole point of rewarded videos. All right, so next I want to go into budget and schedule. So you're going to set your budget. You can do a daily or a lifetime budget. Daily just means that you're hitting a daily limit, or lifetime means how much you want to spend for the entire lifetime of the ad. Once you set it, you can't change it, so make sure you're choosing what you want there. You choose what you want to optimize on, so you can either do it on link clicks, conversions, or app installs. And then lastly, you can choose your bid amount. We suggest that if you're new, that you just stick with automatic bidding. If have you been doing Facebook advertising for a while, you can do manual bidding. And manual bidding just means that you know how much each one of those goals is worth to you. So you know how much a click is worth to you or how much a conversion is worth to you, and you can set what that limit is. For scheduling, we suggest you use run ads all the time. And then once you have the data, you can optimize around days and hours. And then there's delivery types. There's the standard ad delivery, which is what we suggest you stick with. Accelerated ad delivery means that the ads are delivered as quickly as possible, and it generally means that you're spending a lot more money, and they're really better for time-sensitive ads or if you have a much larger budget. All right, so now we're going to move on to creating your ad. So when you create your ad, you're going to choose the page that you want your ad to show up on, or it's connected to, and then you're going to choose your ad format. And we're going to go into all the different ad formats a little bit later because there are so many. Next, once you select your ad format, you go ahead and you set all of your ad settings. So you're going to say, where do you want people to go from your ad? So that's the website URL. Next is the headline. And the headline shows up kind of on the bottom below the image that you choose. I always get confused as to like what the headline, where that shows up versus text versus other options. So that's why we're kind of circling them here so you can see it. So the text actually shows up above the image, and that's where you want to put your value proposition. So you want to say, why should people click on your ad? Next is a call to action. Facebook offers several different types of call to actions. Obviously, you want to match your call to action to whatever you want your users to do. And then lastly, there's an option to add text underneath your headline, and that's the newsfeed link description. And that's where you want to describe where you're taking people. Then there's a display link option. So whereas we previously talked about where you want to take people, you can actually make the URL look different than where you want to take them. So for us in this example, we're taking people to a GoToWebinar landing page, but perhaps we would want that link to look more like it's related to what we're doing. So we made it a whereaware.com/Facebook ad link. Lastly, I want to talk about URL parameters, and this is really, really important when you're doing Facebook advertising. So we're not going to talk at all really today about measurement. Obviously, measurement is extremely important when it comes to Facebook advertising, but I will say this. You need to include URL parameters for every single link. You can do it manually when you put in your URLs, or if you use this URL parameters option, it just makes it appends these URL parameters to every single link on your ad. So whether you're using Google Analytics or you're using another type of tool, you need to make sure that you are putting in parameters that allow you to measure the effectiveness of your ads. And Google has a really easy URL builder tool that you can, if you just Google URL builder, it will allow you to put in your URL and then add all the different parameters, and it will create the URL for you so you don't have to think about it. But it allows you then to go back and see how effective your ads are in Google Analytics. Just a quick note here, Facebook does allow you to track offline events. Essentially, though, you just have to upload an Excel file that contains what those offline events are and feed them into this ad. And then lastly, you can include a pixel tracking. So you have to install Facebook's Pixel in order to do this. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Facebook Pixel a little bit later. All right, so I want to dig a little bit deeper into audiences because this is truly how you get to target your ad and very specifically. and Facebook offers a lot of interesting options for audiences. So there's really three things that you can do. You can create a custom audience, a lookalike audience, or a saved audience. So I'm going to go through saved audiences first. So the saved audience is where people generally think of Facebook targeting. So we suggest using a naming convention again, age, gender, language, demographics, interests, or behavior. And make sure you stick to that naming convention so that when you have a whole bunch of audiences saved later, that it's a lot easier for you to go through. Facebook allows you to target people based on location, so people that live in the location versus just they are in the location versus recently in the location versus traveling to that location. So a lot of location options, including states to cities to countries. Then age and gender is also options here, and languages. So one of the more interesting pieces under saved audiences is the detailed targeting options. And basically these detailed targeting options can be based on what people share on their timelines, the apps they use, the ads they click, pages they engage with, activity people engage with on Facebook. So they offer a ton of ways to do this detailed targeting. And as a subsection of detailed targeting, you can either include or exclude people from this detailed targeting section. Once you select at least one option from these, you'll be able then to narrow the audience down further. So just a caveat here is you don't want to narrow the audience so much that you're dealing with just a couple hundred people, because that's not large enough for Facebook to really go after. So just an example here is, say you want to include people who are homeowners, interested in cooking, and are parents. So that means that if you include people that meet all those criteria, it means or. So they are homeowners or are interested in cooking or are parents. So you could have a person that likes cooking but doesn't own a home in that group. If you want to narrow down further, all you have to use is that narrow audience field that you will see once you select your demographics. So just quickly, the areas that you can do detailed targeting on are demographics, which would be like education level, income, job titles, things like that. Interests, which means they have a specific business interest, they're interested in families or relationships, or that they like specific brands. So that's where you would target maybe competitors or people that like products similar to yours. And then behaviors can be used as well. And that shows like what type of operating systems they use, email domains, and even purchase behavior. So this saved audience is pretty packed full of targeting options, but we like to provide just a few guidelines for you. I would like to say that you want to keep your audience between 250,000 to 1 million, but there's caveats obviously to all of that. So one is, what's your budget? The larger the audience, the bigger your budget needs to be. And then secondly, what stage of the funnel are you in? So if you're at awareness or demand generation, that much larger audience will work. But if you're in acquisition or transaction part of the funnel, then you're going to have a much smaller audience, especially if you're talking about remarketing. You're going to be talking to hundreds of people, not thousands. All right, so now I'm going to dive into custom audiences. When you create a custom audience, there's really 4 ways to do it, and we're going to go into three of them here. So you can use a customer file, base it on website traffic, app activity, or engagement. And we're going to be going over everything except app activity today. So when you connect with a customer file, they have a connector already built in for MailChimp, or you can just upload a flat file. Then you select your identifier, so you can say you want to match on email address or phone number or name, and then you just upload the file. And it will basically match all those fields against what Facebook has on those folks. So I like to use this B2B companies. This is a really great way to narrow in on who your customers are, because Facebook doesn't have a ton of options for business specific, although that's getting better and better. So if you can match a person directly to your email file, you already know that they're a business that you're trying to go after. It makes Facebook advertising a lot more effective. And then I also like to use it if your goal is conversion. If you think about it, you could send out an email to your folks, and then based on what they're clicking on or what the topic of that email is, you can then remarket to them in Facebook on the same topic. Next, we're going to cover website traffic. This requires you to install the Facebook Pixel. So there's a base install, and then there's standard events that you can install as well. And there's about 9 standard events. I put a couple here just so that you can see them, but they have things like lead or searching something or add payment info. So they have a bunch of different standard events. And then you can also track custom events. So that might be good if you say one of your goals is to get people to watch a video or to download a piece of content. You could create a custom event around that specific thing that you want them to do. And again, this is really great for remarketing or conversion ads. And you can see you can target people who have visited your website, who have visited specific web pages, or haven't visited in a certain amount of time. So there's a lot of different things that you can check there. I will say that installing the Facebook Pixel can be a little bit tricky. So if you don't have a developer that's really experienced, it can be a frustrating experience for marketers. But they do have a Facebook Pixel helper if you're more technical that you can check your developers' work. And you can also pass it along to your developers. And it allows you to see if that pixel is working before you go to all the trouble of seeing, you know, that you're going to create the ad and it's not doing what you want it to do. Next, we're going to talk about engagement. And basically, an engagement ad allows you to target people who have interacted with you in the past. So you can, the form on the right is telling you all the different ways that you can target people. So you can do it based on videos. People who watch your videos for 5 seconds, for 30 seconds, that watch the entire thing. You can do it based on people who have opened a lead form but maybe not completed it. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can follow up with folks. And I like this for follow-up ads. So let's say you're introducing a complex product to your audience that might take some education. A really great way is to use engagement ads to kind of do a timeline or to funnel them through a process. So first they see, you know, the beginning, an education series about the ad, and then maybe you show an ad that shows that product in use, and then finally you ask for the conversion. So you're kind of putting them in an education funnel before you're asking for the purchase. And that's where I believe that engagement ads really, really excel. All right, and then lastly, we're going to talk about lookalike audiences. So this is the last custom audience option. So lookalike audiences, basically you choose a source audience. So any one of the saved audiences that you've created in the past or a custom audience that you've created. And Facebook recommends that that audience have at least 1,000 to 50,000 people in it. And the source, the quality of that ad, of that source audience really matters. So if they're people that are just vaguely related to what you're trying to target, it's not going to make a good lookalike audience. So you want to make sure that they're really specific. And then what Facebook does, it will look for all the qualities about those people that are similar and then find people that look like them outside into the whole Facebook hemisphere. And then you can choose the size of your lookalike audience. And the larger you make that audience, the less specific or the less targeted that audience will be. If you choose it to be a little bit smaller, you're going to get people that are very much like your source audience. All right, so now I'm going to dive into your ad types, so your different ad options. So Facebook's main ad options are carousel, single image, single video, slideshow, and collection ads. So I'm going to quickly kind of run through these so that I have time at the end for questions. So the first one is single image ads. These ads are probably what you're most familiar with when you look at ads on Facebook. They're basically one image, and then you have some kind of call to action on there. And on the left, I have some design recommendations, basically what Facebook recommends for the image size and ratio and how much text and headline characters you can use. One thing to remember here is that the text on an image needs to be minimal. So Facebook only allows about 20% of your image to contain text. And they even have a tool, which I have listed here, that you can go to check to see if your ad will pass Facebook standards or not. Basically, they won't run the ad if it has too much text, or it might cost you more money if it has too much text. The next type of ad is a single video ad. And again, I put in all of the design recommendations and technical requirements on the left. They do allow up to 120 minutes of video. I really highly suggest not doing that, and we'll kind of go over our best practices here. So you don't want to include an intro or use logos or credits at the beginning because you're really trying to capture a person's attention within the 2 to 3 seconds. And using an intro or logos or credits in the beginning wastes that 2 to 3 seconds. You don't want to try to tell too much in that video or explain too much in the video, and you don't want to have a person kind of talking to the camera without any type of context. You do want to create a video that's only about 15 to 30 seconds long. Make sure you're selecting a thumbnail. So Facebook allows you to choose what thumbnail you want to display. Make sure you're choosing one that's interesting, that's going to pique people's attention. And then finally, you might want to target mobile users only when they're connected to Wi-Fi. And that's just to ensure that the experience they have with your video is not frustrating, because if they're not on Wi-Fi, that video might stop and start depending on what their coverage is like. All right, carousel ads. So these are basically, I consider them almost like a slideshow. You just hit the arrow button and you kind of go through a series of images. Again, on the left is what you should do as far as design guidelines. And then our tips here are to use product images for high intent customers. So if you know this audience or you're retargeting people and you know this audience is about to purchase, use product silo shots and take them to the product detail page for each product because they're ready to purchase. If you're targeting new customers that might not know your product, start using lifestyle shots because that's going to kind of explain your brand story a little bit better. And then we suggest testing storytelling or themes. So storytelling would be more of a sequence of images. So you do 1, 2, 3 versus a theme might be like all your blue products or all your white products. And then, of course, don't forget to add a CTA. A next option are slideshows. This is a little bit newer of a format for Facebook, but it basically allows you to create a video ad without any of the video production because you can combine multiple images together, some text, and sound even. So this is what the slideshow creation tool looks like in Facebook. It allows you to, it's a really simple tool. It allows you to upload 3 to 10 images. You quickly set your image duration. So if you want the images to show for 1 second versus 2, you can set what your transition looks like if it's a fade or you don't have any transitions between the images. And then they even have a music option. So on the top, you'll see a tab for music. And you can upload your own audio track if you have rights to it. And if you don't have an audio track, they have a selection of music that you can choose. And then on each individual image, they allow you to add some text. So just a heads up here, again, it's the 20% rule still, so make sure you're not adding too much text to this. And then again, just like with video ads, you want to choose your thumbnail wisely and make sure that you have some kind of call to action. Another newer ad format is this collection, and I look at it as kind of a product category page almost. So you get to have the really awesome styled beauty shot at the top, and then have related products to that beauty shot at the bottom. So it allows you different images that you can put in there. And then lastly, Canvas is like a checkoff option. It can be used with almost all the Facebook ad formats. And basically, it just moves that experience to full screen for mobile devices. And then lastly, I want to talk about dynamic remarketing. So dynamic remarketing can be extremely effective because you're targeting people who have shown interest in specific products on your website, and then you can show those products later on in an ad. I will say that it is more of a complex setup to do dynamic remarketing. It is really effective, but it does take more time, which means probably a bigger investment on your part. It does take a product data feed that's set up how to Facebook's specifications, and that it requires you to install specific Facebook pixel events. And the three that are required are view content, add to cart, and purchase. And then on top of that, they require specific parameters to be captured at each of those events. So I just put this in here. I know it's like kind of complex, but I just want you guys to be aware of the level of effort involved in getting dynamic remarketing set up for Facebook. Once you have like all this upfront stuff done, then the next part about creating your ads is actually pretty simple, but it just takes a lot of upfront work in order to get it done correctly. All right, so we're going to talk about next steps. So first of all, I would either claim or create all of your accounts. So that means you need to claim your Facebook page, you need to create an ad account, and then you need to create your business account. Next, I would start off simple. I would start with some kind of maybe a single image ad or something that's pretty simple for you guys to create. And then I would always A/B test, start A/B testing your audiences, your ad formats, creative, where you're placing your ads. That's kind of where I would start off with things. And then if you need extra help, get it. And the reason why we are doing this webinar is because we do offer social media advertising services. So we do both dynamic remarketing and regular marketing, and we do Facebook advertising for both B2B and B2C companies. So if you're interested in those services, please follow up with us after the webinar, and we'll get you in touch with one of our sales reps. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to any questions that we might have.
So we've been getting a lot of great questions throughout the webinar. So I'm going to be going through and reading them off to you, Tia. If anyone who's still on has any more questions, please feel free to type them in and I'll get to them as we go. Okay, let's see. Can you clarify the difference between Ads Manager, Business Manager, and Power Editor, especially for small companies and entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Sorry, could you repeat that question one more time?
Sure. Can you clarify the difference between Ads Manager, Business Manager, and Power Editor, especially for small companies and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so the Ads Manager is where you're going to manage your ads. The Business Manager, which we kind of went through at the beginning, let me go to that slide really quickly. Sorry, just give me a second and we'll get to it. So, so a Business Manager allows you to kind of manage multiple pages and add multiple ad accounts, but probably for a small business, more importantly, it allows you to manage who has access to what and what level of access they have. So that's why you want a business manager. The difference between the ad manager and power editor, if you're a small business or if you're new to Facebook, really you should be only focusing on ads manager. Power editor is really for people who are more advanced and truly understand Facebook advertising.
Great. So we talked a lot about B2C, but are Facebook ads applicable to B2B companies? For example, if someone wanted to advertise a showroom, does Facebook advertising apply here where that wouldn't be to the public? Or would Facebook advertising mostly be used for brand identity?
So, if you want to not share the details of your showroom with the public, then you shouldn't be using Facebook advertising for it. However, if you want to try to target specific people to go to your showroom, then it's a great tool to do that. And Facebook has, in the past has been very focused on B2C, but over the last couple of years, it has added more B2B coverage. So like I said, you could upload your email list if you have an email list of retailers and advertise your showroom to those specific retailers. The other option that you can do is you can target people based on their job titles. So if you can find store owners, that would be the job title, kind of narrowing down that audience to that specific retailer. So it is applicable to B2B companies. And I don't think you just have to use it for brand identity. I think you can try to use it for conversion as well. But again, I think every company differs and you're going to have to test it out.
Great. We have another question here around audiences. So when you gave the example, when you were looking for an audience of people who like to cook and own a home, you were saying that all these items are or statements. So is that just for interest, or do all of the categories, are they, if you want to define them more, are they all or statements?
So they're all or statements, unless you're saying exclude, I believe. So they're for the most part or statements, and you're as long as you're not excluding people, then you shouldn't be narrowing down your audience, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay, let me see what else we have here. So a lot of the examples that you showed were ads in people's feeds. Are these different than the ads that show up on the right-hand side?
Yes, so the right-hand side placement option is only available on the desktop version of Facebook. So for the most part, your ads are going to be in the feeds. You can specify that you want the right-hand placement. It's a much smaller ad space, and Facebook does cut down what is shown in that right-hand placement. And again, it's only available on desktop version.
Okay, thanks. Does the dynamic remarketing show on both Facebook and Instagram automatically? If so, can you tell it to only show on one platform and not the other?
Yes, and yes. So you decide where you want it to show.
Great. You talked a bit about offline events. Can you give an example of what an offline event is?
Sure. So maybe you are running an event and you would, you have, let's say that you have a sign-up sheet, at the event for people who are showing up. You could upload that sign-up sheet to see if any of the people that you targeted on Facebook actually showed up to that event.
Great. Let's see. We got a couple more questions coming in here. So what does reporting for Facebook ads look like? Any tips on how to use reporting to understand how ad sets and ad creative is performing? And how can a brand optimize ads towards performing better using these reports?
So Facebook reporting, I'll say this for the Facebook platform, I feel like it changes daily almost. So everything that I'm writing in here is probably going to be changed in a couple of months, along with the reporting. And the reporting is getting better and better, especially if you have the Facebook pixels installed, because you can track conversions directly in the Facebook platform versus switching between like Google Analytics and then your Facebook advertising. The reporting is good. I didn't want to get into it here because it is a more complex topic that we need a little bit more time to cover. I would suggest that you're looking at things like click-through rate. You're looking at your conversions. So if you don't have the Facebook pixel installed, you need to make sure you're using the Google tag parameters on your URL, so then you can track conversions in Google Analytics. So I would definitely look at click-through rates and conversions first. But other things that you want to look at and keep in mind is frequency, which is something that's kind of unique to Facebook. But generally, you don't want the frequency or how often an ad is shown to one person to go above 3 times, because what happens is your ad quality scores start going down because people say that they don't want to see that ad anymore. So those are like the 3 things that I would focus on probably first when looking at reporting.
Okay, great. Let me see. We had another question. So you mentioned Instagram stories, but what about Instagram feed ads, and how can we best target and reach audience through Instagram feed ads?
So Instagram feed ads, you have the same exact audience options on Instagram feed ads as you do on Facebook. So everything I covered and the specific audiences applies completely to Instagram. That's a placement that you're just choosing. So your audiences are separate from your placements, and the placements that Facebook offers allow you all the same targeting options that we covered today. Got it.
So talking about audiences, someone asked, can you edit the audience after the ad has already started?
Yes, you can. I wouldn't do that because you're gonna kind of lose the ability to see what was working about that audience and what wasn't working. So if you do have to change an audience, I suggest pausing that ad and starting a new ad so that you can track it effectively.
Great. So someone here has a specific question. So running ads in Facebook, he'll typically get a summary of ads that are running with the reach and the engagement. And the report will say that he has X number of engagements, but when he clicks on it, the ad will say that nobody has engaged with the ad. Do you have any ideas what the discrepancy could be?
I don't. I would have to see the specific ad probably to provide a little bit more guidance. So I don't know if I'd be able to answer that one right now, but I could answer it offline if I get a look at the specific ad.
It could also maybe be due to like date ranges that you're looking at. I know I've seen that a couple times where I'm looking at it and it's not giving me the engagement levels that I thought I had, and I noticed that it was an issue with my date ranges.
Yeah, so Facebook does have date ranges options that you can look in the past to see how an ad performed. And if you don't have that date set when your ad was running, then you're not going to see any results. So that's a good point.
Cool. Let me see here. We'll have time for just a couple more questions. I'm just scrolling through here. For the ad options, for the single image template, is it possible to use an animated GIF in that field?
Yes. That was a simple one.
Yeah. Let me see. What is the difference between a regular simple post versus a Facebook dark post?
I actually don't know the answer to that one. So I will have to find out and then come back to you on that.
You stumped us, Melissa. You did it.
Yep.
Let me see. I think that's it for today. I think that's all the questions that we have. I think I've tried to answer all of them that have come through. Like we said in the beginning, and if you missed it at the end, we will be sending out the slides, the webinar recording, and the Facebook advertising cheat sheet that Tia mentioned. That should be either sending out this afternoon or maybe early tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for that in your inboxes. And thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar, and keep an eye out for our future webinars.
Thanks, Nora. Thank you, everyone, for joining.